We are living in a very fast-paced technology world. As you can see, we all are talking about ChatGPT. We all are talking about social media. You guys ready? Here I am with Ismail Ahmed, who is the CEO of IRecomm, and he does mostly commercial real estate. We're going to talk about commercial real estate. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful office.
How are you doing? Coming. Good.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. Good seeing you.
All right, let's dive into it. Commercial real estate is in conversation, a lot of conversation right now, right? So from your perspective, what trends or changes do you see happening, and how are you shaping up your company to deal with it?
Right. So first and foremost, this is definitely a challenging time for commercial real estate. And we can go through several asset classes that are actually having a lot of trouble. Office, for example, right? Since pandemic, we are still seeing that offices are not up to the par with their occupancy, right? In New York alone, we have 94 million square footage of vacant office spaces, right? So that's creating a lot of pressure in that specific sector, which is right now in our industry, probably the worst performing asset class, all these office buildings, right? The issue that we are facing is in commercial real estate, loans are short term. Mm-hmm. These are 5-year fixed, 7-year fixed type of rate.
Right.
So you have about close to $1 trillion worth of loan that are sitting at sub 3-4% type of rate, maturing now at a 6.5-6% type of rate, which is going to create a lot of pressure because a lot of these loans looks like it'll have to be a cash in renewal where landlords will have to bring in significant amount of money just to get meet the underwriting structure. That is where we will see pressure. Now, it's such a big amount that if the banks become creative, if the bank says, look, we will allow a 40-year amortization, we will allow some holdbacks, we'll get into lower our DSCR standard, which might be a little tough given the banking situation right now, right? But if that happens, then we may be able to go through it. But if it doesn't happen, then majority of smaller mom pop type of investors are going to have to make a decision that if they have to find partners to bring money into the table, so they have to bring a partner or they have to sell. So that's creating a kind of, there is something cooking now that everybody's waiting to see because there will be a lot of people that will be forced to sell. We're already seeing price adjustments being made. We are just working on a deal 2.5 months ago. It was priced at 4.4 million. Number doesn't work. We ended up going to contract for 3.650.
Oh wow!
Crowd, right? So so that's where we are seeing the market right now. This is where the situation in commercial real estate right now.
While we are in that conversation about commercial real estate, do you think the amount of loan that is going to be coming in due in 6 or 12 months are we ready to eat it up, or there will be some intervention, do you think, from the government side?
I don't think that there will be any intervention from government side. If there is something, can we eat it up? And that's a great question because we are seeing a lot of funds, and we literally call them vulture funds. That's the term, right? Yeah. They're just waiting to eat those up, right?
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
And one of the things that I get a lot of questions, from individual investors, like from our communities and stuff, that hey, should we wait? Is there deal? And my thing is that look, there is so much money these institutions are waiting to deploy, right? I don't think for smaller people like us, we will see deals because it's gonna get eaten up by bulk, right? So the only people who's gonna be disadvantages on that which is another thing that I'm very passionate about, is small owners are probably gonna lose, and it's gonna become property of Blackstones or some funds. And this is where the whole industry is going on the residential side, right? You see these big institutions are gobbling up single family properties by thousands.
So every time there is this crisis, so that means we mom and pops are losing, and the big guys are becoming big.
And that's unfortunately true. Look, right now, and the property that I was telling you about, it's in Harlem, a generational owner, 26 years of ownership in the property. They had a loan it's a rent stabilized building, rent didn't go up, COVID took a toll on the guy, he had to fix a lot of stuff. He came to a point, maybe if the rate was 4%, his number worked and we could have given him renew the loan, and he could have had another 5 years in that ownership and keep it to his family. Now he can't, right? So he's forced to sell, drop the price from 4.4 to 3.7 million just because he didn't want to hand it over to the bank, right? So who's the loser on that, right? It's this person. Fortunately, another small operator bought the property, so I feel good about that. Okay, it didn't go to a big corporation, something that I'm passionate about, right? So it kind of stayed similar type of sector, but I don't think that's going to continue. When the pressure comes, I think this thing's gonna get gobbled up.
We are living in a very fast-paced technology world. As you can see, we all are talking about ChatGPT. We all are talking about social media. Now, with all this technology that's coming your way, you are a first generation starting a business in this economy, and you started a commercial real estate. You are paving the way. So how are you taking advantage of this new technology, and what are the challenges are you facing, and how are you going about it?
So that's a great question. I mean, as far as we are essentially we are a commercial real estate financing firm, but we also consider ourselves a technology firm because we are one of the main goals is to change the way the industry works, right? Loans in general, if you have ever gotten a loan, you see how tedious the process is, right? There are a lot of redundancy. There are a lot of forms that you need to put your same information 5 times, right? There are a lot of declarations, a lot of disclosures that you have to sign with the same information, right? So that's one aspect. Then you have the layers and validation. So you speak to a loan officer and you provide them with some data, right? They basically sort it out, send it to an underwriter. Now, underwriter takes it and do some validation of whether what you are saying and what the loan officer has sent in, does it make sense? Is it a right thing? Is it wrong thing, right? What we are saying is that, hey, why can we make this process more efficient? Now you go in, upload information. You don't even have to type anything. You said, hey, I'm a borrower, I'm looking for a loan. Here are a bunch of information, right? Whether it's handwritten, as long as it's legible, right? Mm-hmm. You upload bunch of stuff. What the system is smart enough to do is pick out from there, right, that who you are, your address, your social, your eye color, whatever is needed, right, your bank balance. It's taking everything and filling everything out, right? So reducing the time, right? So that's one aspect of that we are utilizing the OCR technology to reduce time, and we are building it ourselves. The second thing is that validation, and with the involvement of AI. So what in right now you say that, hey, I have $10,000 in my Chase account, right? Then it goes to underwriting. The underwriting is saying that, okay, send me your last 3 months of bank statement, and after that they're still asking you to give you authorization so that they can connect with Chase Bank to verify that you still have that 10,000 in the account or not. We are saying, why can we do that? The moment Alamgir says, I have 10,000 in my Chase, why can we verify it right then and there that yes, it is there, tick mark it.
Right.
If Alamgir is saying that, hey, I am employed with ABC Corporation for 2 years, why we wait for 2 weeks later an underwriter to connect their system to Labor Department, right? And verify that yes, ABC Corporation does exist and Alamgir has been working there for 2 years. Why can't we just do those check marks right while we go? So now when the file is going to an underwriter, it's already 40-50% validation is already completed, reducing a lot of work, right? So these are some features that we are utilizing as a technology that we feel once said and done, we can probably reduce the a loan timing for
Are these available at this time?
Some of the stuffs are available. So
okay.
our dynamic app is available.
To dive more into that process, other companies are doing similar stuff like you, or you are the only one who's doing this thing right now?
So other companies have what they call is a lender database. So what they have is a list of, so there are 10,000 commercial real estate lenders of various types.
Okay.
Right? Whether it's banks, whether it's private, whether it's insurance companies, whether it's mortgage-backed securities. So various types of lenders.
So they have their system already aligned there.
So they have a database in place.
Okay.
It's a manual database, right? That hey, Chase Bank does this, the credit union in Ohio does that, right? And then system kind of matches that.
Right.
But what happens is that it kind of stops there, right? Because what happens after the system matches it, number one, is that is it true that the bank is still doing that? That type of loan, right? We don't know that verification, right? AI does that for us now, which we are the first one to our knowledge that are doing it. We are making sure that the process is solid. The process that if we are presenting our borrower and connecting with the lender, it's verified that yes, this lender indeed the right lender for your product, right?
Got it.
And look, at any given moment, we are also keeping the option that hey, do you want to self-direct this whole thing by yourself? If you do, fine, utilize our system, pay us a small fee, and then just.
So after, let's say I'm a client, put the information in your system. I find this bank that picks up. Now I want to do business with that bank. Who do I go to?
So you have at that point you have an option.
Okay.
If you say that hey, I want to self-direct the loan, right?
Okay.
I'm savvy enough to and I don't want to pay a broker fee, because essentially if we are doing all the structuring and work.
So you're saying I could call directly to that bank?
We are connecting through our platform, right? We are connecting you to the person where the bank is, and then you start utilizing our platform to submit the document. So here is where we are keeping our value, because a lot of people would say that so once we have the connection with the bank, we can just go. And you can, but look, end of the day, the value we are adding, right? So we are asking you that hey, put your documents through us. So because we understand what the bank needs, because that's what we do, right? That's what we allowed our system to do, right? So we are making sure that if the loan is structured right for the bank, because once it goes to the lender can just say yes or no, right? So by keeping by keeping the process in our system, it's giving you that, and this is what you are paying for actually, right? This is keeping it in line with what the lender needs to see, how the lender needs to have the loan structured. So we are doing that for you,
right,
which you might not be able to do. And even if you're allowed,
if I call the bank and if they said that they said that in this company IRecomm recommended me to this, you guys do this kind of, and they collected all my data and they verified that it's like a pre-approval kind of type, right? And they're like, okay, that's great. The bank could say that, that's great. This person already has something lined up,
right?
And come, we'll do your loan. In that case, do you get any cut?
Right. So at at that point, so because before we are handing off to the lender, right? You need to make a decision.
Okay.
So if you say, look, I want to do self-direct, then fine, give us X amount of fee, and then we'll connect you, and then you can go, right? And we are still saying that, look, you should still run this through our platform, because the lender is getting the information through us, right? Because they picked up the deal from our platform, right? So that connection is basically
you already established,
right?
Okay.
It's like Uber, right? You can, once you meet the guy, you can say, hey, I'll call you on the side, and you can do some trip for me, and then whatever the case is. Yeah, you can, but why would you?
Right.
Because the system is so good that you don't want to do that. And that's what we are providing. Look, we are still allowing the system to run, make sure that the file is good. If we see something wrong, we are not sending, because once the file is with lender, for example, right, a lending underwriting, right, you can restructure it while it's being reviewed, right? So, but we can do that here.
No, I think that was a good analogy about the Uber thing. And that makes sense if it is a streamlined well, and if the client has a value, then there is no need for them to do that, because especially those clients, if they are high net worth people, so they might not have time to do those things. They want someone to be done. So that's I believe that's a great
we are we are being so confident in our in our system and the support and the value it can add, we are basically allowing this thing that we are not thinking that in the line that, oh, once I connect a person to the bank, maybe the rest of the loans they will just do together and bypass us. I don't think that anybody would want to bypass that at that point once they see the value that and the way we structure the file. Because look, before we even get to the bank, we are collecting information, right?
Right.
And the way we are preparing a loan memo to be submitted to the lender, most people are not going to be able to or have time or wouldn't want to sit down with their own paper, breaking it down, creating a loan memo that covers a lot of nitty-gritty, right? Because there are more to it than just submitting your tax return, right?
Right.
So, once people understand that, those values, and I think this is pretty much people in this industry, they understand, and this is why they come to a broker.
How are you getting those information out to people? Like, to your clients, the potential clients. Are you doing it through social media? Are you marketing yourself?
So not right now, because our product is not 100% completed.
Okay.
So we are still at a beta. So we are still doing trial and error within ourselves.
Okay.
People within the industry that we are comfortable with, right? People that and we have a pretty decent group of about 30-40 people that we can always go and say, hey, can you test this out? Can you give me your feedback, right? So we are still doing that.
Okay.
We are almost ready, but as you're saying that, how do we keep in check of all the technology advancement? So we are almost ready to roll out.
Okay.
And then in November, ChatGPT came out.
Right.
And then we realized that we can start adding some extensions to it.
Right.
So we said, hold on, let's figure out where we can adding those. So this is why now we're taking a little time. But we came to an agreement that let's just release it, right? Once we get some traction, we will start, we will probably be able to have like an engineer or a team of people that are constantly monitoring those changes and then adding those. That's the only way to be.
Okay, so those are great information. Now let's talk about background. How did you come about commercial real estate, and how did you come about getting into this software business? Give us that path. How did you come about?
When we met in college, right? I was already in Citigroup at that time, right?
Okay.
I was on the banking side. So I've been in banking since 2001. I started, before even finishing college, I got into the investment side of the banking. So, I consider myself a banker first. So I went through various channels of banking. I did investment, retail, business. So when it came to credit side of it, particularly the real estate financing side of it, I like the idea of that you can actually touch it, feel it, you can see, you can type up an address and a building shows up, right? Opposed to in investment side, it's just kind of up in the air, right? Like, you're looking at a stock, you don't really know what's behind it, right? So that's one aspect. Number one, I like that, okay, this is something that's tangible, that you can see. My interest came, so I've always, when I was in banking, I always thought that, okay, everything that I'm learning, how easy would be to open a bank? Not very easy, right? So I'm always thinking that, okay, what can I do with my knowledge to kind of do something on my own? So I always had that thought process, right? One of the reasons why I tried the restaurant for some time, because I thought I had a lot of knowledge on the restaurant because I worked in restaurants. So I figured, okay, let me just try, right? So my mindset was always like that, right? Like I wanted to kind of try. So when I went into the commercial real estate financing side of it, one thing I realized, and I tell that to everybody, that look, we live in New York, right? These are these massive buildings, right? And then when you walk around in the city as a normal person, an average person, especially from our background and stuff, you can't even begin to think that a normal person like us can own a building like this, right? You think, oh, maybe this is some, conglomerate, some government, some, big people that are flying private jets or own this building or whatever the case is, like Trump or whatever. But then I started to realize that these are real, like actual normal people that had a very similar upbringing, and and I started getting stories that, oh, my father had a property in Long Island City that He bought it for $87,000, sold it for $8.5 million, and I came to manage the real estate. And I'm just like, wait, we have stories like that, right? Like we have people that coming, so it's doable, right? So this is why I'm just like, I started to get very interested that this is not something that reserved for selected few people.
Right.
You can get into that, right? I looked around on the financing side of it. There wasn't many people that were from our background that were doing real estate financing. I kind of started dabbling into it. I started learn. So I did pretty much conventional financing. I did CMBS financing. I did agency. So I touched on various type of loans. And same thing, I kind of started to think that, okay, what can I do to kind of do something on my own. So this is where we came about creating IRecomm for a few reasons. Number one, that it allows me a freedom to structure. So because when I work for a bank, I'm limited to the bank's parameter, right? So if the bank says, look, we only want a loan with 65 LTV in New York, 2 million to 10 million. So anything outside of that, I cannot touch, right? But I'm realizing that the knowledge I have, I can help those people, but I can't because I'm limited to my banking parameters, right? This IRecomm allows me to change that. Now I can really I can be very creative with the loan, right? I can allow my knowledge to structure a loan the right way, the best way possible, right? The puzzle pieces that we talked about. Number one. Number two is that the biggest thing is that it also allows me to kind of find ways to get more people involved into that, right? We talk about New York market, people talk about 100 million, 200 million. That's only 3.5 to 4% of the entire industry that are above $10 million.
Oh wow!
Right. So majority. So now 95% of that $14 trillion of commercial real estate are below $10 million range. Why can't more people get into that? Right?
Yeah.
And we don't have to look at a New York City building that are trading for $650 million. We don't have to look at Hudson Yards, right? But there are other opportunities everywhere, right? And this is where I'm saying that okay, there's a lot of opportunities. It's also going to allow me to kind of see if I can help people from the communities, people from other minority areas or groups that to come in, because end of the day that's the only way to set up wealth, right? I mean, through real estate, right?
Yeah,
So those are the two things that really got me into this, and that's where we are now. We are finding different ways to how we can just make it better and make it allowable for everyone.
Awesome, thank you so much. Lot of great information. So now I want to ask you about your setback and failures. Whenever you go and pursue something, so of course there are many setbacks and failures. My question is, how do you face them, and what challenges have you faced while going about doing this business, commercial real estate? Can you tell me a little bit about it? Because
no, I mean that's great. Look, I mean professionally, before starting the business, while I was working in banking field, right? I mean there are setbacks in areas where I couldn't meet my goals, right? Which because I was pretty much always in a bonus type of structure, where my compensation is directly dependent on my performance. And there were times when, especially there is this one time when I literally had to move. There was a period of time in Citibank that I went through this hump where things weren't going so well, and it came to a point that I was told that you might not be able to stay with the company, right? So and that was a period of 2 years where I changed bank. I went to a different bank. Tried to figure out that what can I do, but then I realized that it's not about changing banks. It's I have to do something myself, right? So it took, but I lost 2 years, or I shouldn't say lost, but I learned a lot within the 2 years of time when I was basically dialed backwards. I was doing so good. I was professionally, I was moving up, and I got to a VP position and all that. And then it started to dial back. Financially, I was getting, I was having trouble. So yeah, I mean, there was a period of time from, I would say, from 2009 to 2011, which was, very rough for me, right? So it's looking back and seeing once again, just evaluating that, okay, what do I know, right? What did I learn? So I'm thinking that, okay, I started the banking in 2001. There was a period of time like, what did I do all this time and why am I in this situation, right? Just because I'm not able to maintain certain things, now I find myself, so what can I do? So I just reevaluating what did I learn and started to build off of that. And this is when I said, you know what, maybe with my knowledge, let me come out of banking for some time, let's try something different. And that was the time I came, did some consulting, I opened up a restaurant, just try to get my head out and see that maybe banking is not for me, right? So like the doubt, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Is it something? Maybe that maybe I belong to having being a restaurant.
We all
owner,
have
right?
those, yeah.
Right. So I tried that, but look, at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning, I think I'm a banker by trade, inside out. Something about that kept saying no. I'm gonna
How
go
did
back
you
to
overcome
banking.
that
Right.
doubt and that?
Yeah, so it was just inside, right? It just something is just telling me that no, you are a banker, you are not a restaurant owner, right? So go back to that, right? I was missing wearing suits, I was missing. So a lot of those things were just keep with the doubt of both sides, good and bad, right? So then I started, but then I knew at that time that I wanted to utilize what I've learned to get into something that's a little bit more engageable, a little bit more fun. And this is where we talked about coming into the lending side of it, and finding so once I came the day one when we talked about the structure of what needs to happen and what I'll be doing and what my responsibility is going to be on the creating the financing on the commercial real estate, I started kind of enjoying that. So I think it's just that realizing that what are some of the things that you're like, not forgetting the lessons that I learned, and always try to go back to those and see what we can we can bring out of that. So that's personally in my professional career. With IRecomm, obviously pandemic was a major setback. Our entire business model is closing loans for people, right? So 2019 we had a great year. 2020 we get into in end of January we hire 4 people on a salary.
Oh wow.
March comes, we're like, okay, we cannot pay them, right? Because all the bank shuts down, right?
Oh,
so
wow.
that was also a tough
So that's
time.
a huge setback. So,
Right. All of a sudden we were in the growth mode to come to a standing still. But I mean, look, it ended up that 2020 was our biggest year till to this day. What we did in 2020. In middle of pandemic, I think it's kind of like amazing. So as you know, all the hotels were closed. Right. Nobody was doing hotel loans. We ended up doing a lot of hotel loans at that time. So we were working 16, 17 hours a day. So those people that we hired, we kind of pivoted everybody and just learned about how to structure hotel deals, right? Also, the PPP rolled out, right? Same thing. It was an SBA loan, so we didn't even know that whether we'll get paid off of those or not, because every day they were changing the structures, right? And there was no mention of a broker or a consultant fee agreement. All they said that you cannot charge customers any money, right? Because it's a government-funded loan. So we were literally, by law, we couldn't, even if people wanted to pay us, we could not collect any money. But we started doing work. We said, look, let's just stay busy. We'll figure out. We looked at it this way, that look, even if we don't get money, we'll make a huge advertisement that we help this type of businesses for free.
Okay.
Right? And we'll get their testimonials and say, like, look, these guys did all this work for free for us during this time. I said, let's just get to the work, right? We ended up those SBA ended up paying us and all that stuff. So it turned out. So we ended up helping 56 businesses bring about $31 million
Amazing.
in PPP funding.
That's
so
amazing.
It's just finding out, and luck also plays a role, because it's just kind of fine. But
they say when you work hard, luck kinds of come.
So that turned out to be a really, really good few months for us. A lot of work, but it was a lot of hard work, but that paid us, which kind of got us to here, where we were able to decide that we want to invest our money into technology.
Right.
Otherwise we probably wouldn't have thought about it that way, and would still run it in a one avenue. And
Right, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's amazing that even though the growth was happening in one field, you just didn't stop. You were thinking in different direction. You're like, okay, I want to also explore that side,
Right.
and that's amazing.
You have to pivot, right?
But now that you're saying that you were working and you were working hard, you got yourself over from that failure, and you came back. That required a lot of time. So now the question is, like, how do you balance? I know that you also have 3 kids.
Right.
You also have a family.
Right.
How do you balance?
It's priority. Look, end of the day, I make sure that no matter what happens, there are certain times that needs to get spent with family is there, right? So 5 o'clock doesn't matter in majority of the time unless there is something very important. There is a cutoff. So from 5 to 8:30 at night, I don't sacrifice the time for work or for no matter what, right? So that's a priority that I have. Weekends, I spend pretty much a lot of time with everybody, right? We go out, we do whatever we need to do, right? Travel, go to places, parks, all that stuff. So, you just have to have that behind your mind, that kind of shut things down, right? I used to work late a lot. Now I don't,
right?
And it's basically and these are things that I'm learning how to compartmentalize, right, which is also a challenge. But these are all working in progress and working as learning. Gotta have great team,
right?
People that picks up for you, right? So that's I'm lucky to have, right? So it's got to be a combination of things that that you need to do, but you need to make sure that what's the priority.
Right, that's amazing. Lastly, I would say, what do you do as your own, where either hobbies or anything to have a downtime for yourself, just to unwind?
You still want me to have downtime after all that?
That's what I'm saying. You need to have it, right?
Yeah. So look, I mean, my downtime is pretty simple. I don't need a lot of time. I mean, for me, if I can just sit somewhere for 15-30 minutes, to 30 minutes, I can find myself getting recharged. I read a lot, right? So that kind of gives me something. And then sometimes they say, which is kind of like sounds a little cliche, but when you enjoy what you do, you don't think of it as work, right? Because sometimes, like when I'm reading articles on commercial real estate, I'm very relaxed about it. I'm cool with that, right? I'm like, I feel like okay, I'm relaxing, but I'm also reading about it, right? So yeah, I mean, I think this is, that makes a difference. I mean, when I'm driving, I'm just like, oh, I financed this building, so things like that is kind of work together,
Absolutely.
And I try to, my biggest thing is that I wanted to, as long as I can maintain that, I don't want to get to a point where what I do, the business, and this is what I'm very, sensitive to, is that I don't want that to become, in a way like, oh my God, like this is dragging me down, or this business, so also understanding the cutoff periods, right? Because, if you get bogged down to that, and if you realize that, or if you don't realize that, just bring you down, right? Then you allow yourself, right? So if you stay conscious about it, like I always tell myself, I'm always evaluating that, am I okay with this? Right? Because if not, I don't want to let it get to a point. I need to find a way to cut it, because my priority needs to remain the same. Right? Everything else gets built around there. So that's so far, it's working.
That's great. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Amazing.